Welcome to Games from Folktales, a podcast that mixes historical research and tabletop role-playing settings. I'm your host, Timothy Ferguson. For only the second time, Games from Folktales welcomes a guest author. Tom Nowell is one of the presenters of the other Ars Magica podcast, Arcane Connection. This article has been purchased for the new Mythic Europe magazine, which is still accepting submissions. Before reading you Tom's piece, I want to flag a couple of clever things he's done here that go against the general run of submissions for people who are wavering about writing. Tom's article is very short, just above the minimum cap. For the reader, that means there's a minimum of waffle. You go in, you get his information, and you can go. As the person who's laying out the magazine, his piece is perfect to work with. It fits in around the 5,000 word pieces that other people are sending me because it's either under a single page as text or a complete page as text with a small illustration or a double page spread as text and a large illustration. The guideline being between 500 and 5,000 words doesn't mean that the most desirable piece lands right in the middle at 2,500 or that the best pieces are at the far end of the range. Write to the length of the material you have to get your point across, and if that's a short piece, as the layout guy, that's fantastic. His article is also about what, in my estimation, is the most common Magus virtue other than the gift itself. It's not an elaboration on a rule that you need to be 3 books deep in to understand. Many experienced players have had some of the thoughts that Tom presents here. For new players, though, it's a quick way for them to get into the unspoken consensus on character building that's developed in our community. It's great to write down the things that are easy for very experienced players, but are occluded from the view of the new people who've been brought in by the definitive edition. And now, over to Tom's words. The core rules define a personal viz source as, you have exclusive access to a supply of raw viz. How this takes form is up to the troop, but here are some suggestions that you could use as inspiration. Truly personal viz sources. Viz can arise from the Magus's own body, which makes sure they're the first to get to it. This is particularly appropriate for corpus viz. Someone could collect their tears as a source of imaginum viz. As they cry, the colour leaves their eyes so that they become extremely pale. You could gather up a Magus's bedding to extract the viz they've sweated out over a year. More unsavoury magi could collect the leavings of their chamber pot to extract viz from, or a magi could collect her menstrual blood. As a more abstract idea, viz could arise from a Magus's emotions, and the pillow they sleep on slowly fills with mentum viz from their dreams. Stories arise from unscrupulous wizards wanting to imprison hedge wizards and extract their viz, or claim potential apprentices who show signs of having a personal viz source. Secret methods. A personal viz source could be collected by a method that only the Magus knows. A Bajorna might know how to nest upon a magic egg in their heartbeast such that it collects animal viz, a small box passed down. I know I should cut that disturbing sound out, but that is a domestic house gecko, a sort of putty-coloured gecko that first invaded Australia in the 1920s from Malaysia. They're the inspiration for the gecko spirits that turn up in Socotra in Rivals of Hermes. Back to Tom. A small box passed down from a Marinita mentor can be opened once a year if the holder uses the correct set of movements to reveal viz. Secret sources can be passed on to other characters, which requires careful handling from the troop to avoid excessive amounts of viz or resentment from players who don't inherit. These external items can be stolen or sold. Stories arise if someone attempts to learn their method of use. An enemy could interfere with the viz gathering out of spite. Organised groups, such as a Tremare Vexillation, may negotiate for the purchase of secret viz sources. Legal privileges. The Peripheral Code allows for viz sources to be registered to a particular covenant or magus. See the public viz source hook in Covenants on page 22. This can add to the covenant and tribunal background, as you decide if this is a legacy passed down through a hermetic lineage, or a gift arranged by a mentor. You own the source, but anyone wanting to cause trouble knows where to interfere, which creates stories. Enemies can pressure the tribunal to transfer ownership of the source or to reallocate its viz to another purpose. The method you happen to be perfect for. Some of his sources can only be gathered by people who meet strict criteria, and your Magus is a perfect match for one of those. There could be a viz source that can only be collected by the first person with the blood of the Merovingian kings who visits on All Saints' Day. If you're the only person in your covenant with this ancestry, you can collect it with no competition. A standing stone may give its viz to any red-headed man who speaks a phrase to it in the local dialect. The sheer number of dialects in Mythic Europe can rule out any other character in your troupe. Stories occur when other people who match the requirements turn up. Thanks again to Tom. Check out his podcast, Arcane Connection, over on Podomatic. Your saga may vary.